trying to time the market has literally cost me millions of dollars and millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin because I've made the same mistake more than once. And I'm going to tell you how to not make that mistake yourself. The easy way to not make the mistake of trying to time the market is to buy as much Bitcoin as you can right now on sale, regardless of the price. Buy it and hold it as long as conceivably possible. But I know many of you are going to make the same mistake I made. And so I'm going to tell you the story of how I made that mistake, because each time I made that mistake, it cost me literally millions of dollars. All right, so the first time I made the mistake of trying to time the market was in 2014. I had just sold Baumgar Corporation, and the proceeds of Baumgar Corporation I put with a financial manager. And they asked me how aggressively I wanted to invest that money. And because it had been about 5 years since a prior recession in 2008, 2009, I thought, hey, it's been 5 or 6 years. We're probably closer to the next recession than we are away from the last recession. So I told them that I wanted to invest the money very conservatively, and I would wait for a major recession in order to invest the money very aggressively. Effectively, I was going to try to move it from a very conservative portfolio to a very aggressive portfolio in a market dip. Now, they told me I shouldn't do that. I should not try to time the market, and that there was a good chance that by the time there was a recession, the market would be so much higher than it was back then that was a bad strategy. But I outsmarted myself. I executed my time the market strategy. And because I had all of the financial resources from just having sold the company, I would have had enough in that the differential between putting it in a very aggressive growth strategy based on the fact that I, was not planning to retire for a very long time, if ever, means the difference of the performance between 2014 and 2019 and 2020, when I spent most of that money on politics and public policy. So ultimately, I ended up not having that money. I would have had millions of dollars in 2019 that I didn't have because I was too conservatively invested in the stock market between 2014 and 2019. And again, it was to the tune of millions of dollars. Now, ultimately, I spent the vast majority of my wealth on public policy and politics in 2018, 2019, and 2020, and 2021. So I probably would have spent that extra money anyway. But regardless, it cost me millions of dollars of money that I could have allocated to things I care about. So I should have just put the money in the market like they recommended. They said, look, don't try to time the market. Buy good assets and hold on to them for a long time, which is the same thing I recommend for Bitcoin. Buy as much as you can, hold on to it for as long as conceivably possible. Don't try to time the market when the price of Bitcoin is at a certain price or a certain time of the day or the week or the month or the year or a certain place in some supposed hypothetical 4-year cycle. Just buy as much Bitcoin as you can and hold on to it for as long as conceivably possible. That's what I wish I had done in 2014 when I sold Baumgar Corporation. Okay, the second time I made the mistake, I started accumulating Bitcoin in late 2017. After the run in 2017 up to $19,000, the price cooled off, and I bought a fair amount of Bitcoin, around $9,000 per coin. And I told myself that instead of buying more Bitcoin at $9,000 of coin, which I should have done because I'd be up 1,000%, I'd be up 10x on that money, that instead I was going to try to time the market, because apparently I did not learn my lesson from losing millions of dollars in the stock market. I did not learn my lesson, so I was going to time the market with Bitcoin. And so I thought, you know what? Bitcoin goes up and down. It goes through these, cycles of volatility and stuff. If Bitcoin goes down to $4,500, which was half, I was like, okay, I'm at $9,000. I bought a fair amount of Bitcoin at $9,000. If it drops to $4,500, I'm going to buy a substantial amount more Bitcoin. Well, it did drop. Unlike the stock market, where I missed out because the recession I was anticipating never happened. Now, it still might, but if it does, it's never going to drop back to the prices I could have bought back in 2014. Not even close. So back then I missed out because it never dropped. And so I never reallocated those strategies. At least, eventually I did, probably in the 2020s sometime, but that was, way delayed. So in Bitcoin, the problem was not that it never hit 4,500. The problem was that it did, and I didn't pull the trigger, because I did what almost everybody does when they try to time the market, is when the price actually does drop to whatever their magic number is, they freak out. They chicken out. They're like, wow, the price is really down. it's down 50% from $9,000 down to $4,500. If it's dropping that quickly over the course of however many months, from 9,000 to 4,500, maybe there's something wrong with it. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe it's going to drop more. Maybe my magic number should be $3,000. I was thinking these thoughts, which is, hey, instead of buying it at 4,500, why don't I just wait and see if it hits 3,000? Then I can buy even more Bitcoin. Well, of course, it did hit 4,500. It stayed below that for months on end, and it never hit 3,000. Now, had it hit 3,000, I wouldn't have bought it anyway, because anybody who's going to chicken out at 4,500 is also going to chicken out at 3,000 waiting for 2,000. Like, you're never going to win this game of timing the market. You can't time the market in the stock market, the bond market, the commodities market. Like, if you are not a professional, full-time, paid and trained trader on Wall Street, and even most of them lose money. But if you're not one of those who even has a chance of making money, because you work for JP Morgan as a professional stock trader or bond trader or commodities trader, if you're not one of those, you're definitely going to lose money by trying to time the market. So Bitcoin is on sale right now at $86,000. Could it go lower? Yes. But if it does, one, it might not. So this might be as cheap as you can buy it. And if it does go lower, even if you're telling yourself you're not going to buy it now, you're going to buy it later when it goes lower, it's either not going to go lower, or if it does go lower, you're going to chicken out like I did and not actually buy it at a lower price. And when Bitcoin's up at $150,000 and $200,000 per coin, you'll be sitting thinking, wow, I could have bought Bitcoin at $86,000, but I was waiting for 75. And either 75 never came, or it did come and you didn't buy it there because it was dropping and you thought what I thought. It's going to drop farther. Maybe this is a bad time. Maybe something's wrong with Bitcoin. Maybe it's the end of the party. Maybe it's going all the way to zero. You're going to think all the things that are going to make you not buy Bitcoin at $75,000, just like you're not buying Bitcoin at $86,000. And that decision, because had I bought $4,500 Bitcoin with the amount of money I was planning to allocate to buy that Bitcoin, that decision alone to not do the right thing cost me millions of dollars again. So I outsmarted myself out of millions of dollars in the stock market by trying to time the market, and I outsmarted myself out of millions of dollars in Bitcoin by trying to time the Bitcoin market. Now, thankfully, I was not stupid all the time, and I ultimately did acquire a fair amount of Bitcoin, but again, I didn't have that much money left over after most of my money was spent on politics and public policy between 2018 and 2021. So I didn't have that much money left over, but I had enough that I could still acquire a fair amount of Bitcoin in the 2022 bear market, well, all the way through 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025. I've basically been acquiring Bitcoin ever since 2021. I mean, and all the way through the dip in 2022, I was never trying to time that market. The market would go down and I would find some way of coming up with more US dollars to buy more Bitcoin. And it would drop some more and I would try to buy some more. But I was never waiting for a certain price, and I was never telling myself that I have US dollars, I can invest in Bitcoin, but I'm going to wait. Because after learning my lesson twice, I should have learned it the first time, but after losing millions of dollars trying to time the stock market, and then losing millions of dollars trying to time Bitcoin, I was not stupid enough to make that same mistake a third time. So between 2021 and 2025, I have been accumulating Bitcoin at all prices. And the more it's on sale, the harder I work to find some way of getting more Bitcoin. But I'm never timing the market, and I'm never going to make that mistake again, and I would recommend you don't either. So learn from my multi-million-dollar mistakes. Buy as much Bitcoin as you can, regardless of the price, and hold on to it for as long as conceivably possible. That's the same advice if you're a stock market investor. It's the same advice for, if you're investing for your retirement. Accumulate as much assets as you can and hold on to them for as long as conceivably possible. Same with Bitcoin. Buy as much Bitcoin as you can, hold on to it for as long as conceivably possible. Do not try to time the market. Do not wait for a certain price. Do not wait for a certain time. Buy as much Bitcoin as you can and hold on to it for as long as conceivably possible, and you will not make the same mistakes I made that cost me millions.